we are.
Everyone go retweet it.
Yeah.
Let's take the time right now.
Let's do it.
Good call.
I just got a notification on my phone that said MPJ balling out, but all I read was MPJ out, and I was like, oh God,
did you
here we
get
go.
That's what I saw too. Yeah.
All skepticism just has been reassured.
Right.
Yeah.
Nuggets, no. No.
Don't do this to us. All right, everyone good? Ready to go?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast presented by Breckenridge Brewery, home of the Great Drew's enjoying one right now as he is officially in the off-season. Drew, how does it feel?
Well, it hasn't been very off yet. Today was a big day. There was a lot to talk about, but the long nap I took yesterday felt really good.
It's always 5 o'clock when you're in the off season.
That's right. That's right.
All right, well, I've got, as you guys could hear, Drew Koningsberg. I almost joined you.
You'd be good. He would be good.
That guy
I like
sounds
that
like a
guy.
good reporter.
Okay, Drew Kreisman, AJ Haefele, Eric. Eric, and Ryan Koenigsberg, and Andre Simone on the board. And as you guys can tell, we're already having fun. There's a lot to talk about in the Denver sports world. Let's start with you, Drew, just to wrap up. The Rockies swept the Brewers to finish their 2019 season. Some exciting wins. We got to see 2 walk-off wins.
Oh, there went all of our viewers.
The Rockies, bye.
That was an objectively hilarious series of professional sports games. I don't care who you are, what sport you're into. That was some of the funniest. The Brewers were basically in a position starting the day where like their whole playoff odds could ride on this game, and if the Cardinals lost and they could beat the Rockies and they were like the Rockies were in last year, and all this cool stuff could happen. And then the Cardinals just destroy the Cubs early on. And so about the 4th inning of that last game, everybody knew no one's playing for anything. The Rockies have been out of it for a month and a half. The Brewers knew they had nothing left to play for. They took all their starters out. All these kids are out there. Suddenly we're watching a AAA baseball game, but they're all trying really hard. The Rockies make a comeback at the end and send the game into extras, which just messes up the Brewers even more. And I haven't really said this out loud yet. I'm 80% sure I watched a team purposefully lose and mess that strategy up because they should have purposefully lost 4 innings earlier. It was the funniest thing I've seen in a very long time, and I enjoyed every second of that final series. I know it was like meaningless to the standings or whatever, some small measure, especially if the Brewers get rocked today by the Nationals and they look tired. I think the Rockies are going to feel a little bit good about themselves in the way they went after the team that unceremoniously swept them out of the NLDS last year.
Well, also they saved themselves from finishing in the basement, right? So there's
That's
like
right.
there's like a little pride involved.
Charlie Blackman had a great line about that. He goes, I guess it's good we're not the worst.
I guess.
You know, players weren't taking too much stock in that, but yeah, I mean, I think some fans did. That it's better to not be in last, and they're not playing for draft picks at this point. You know, it's not that. So yeah, they needed their season to end well, and they needed their young guys to play. And that was the other fun thing about all these comebacks and the walk-offs that I was talking about. You got Garrett Hampton, Sam Hilliard, them being down to their final out, and Sam Hilliard comes off the bench to face Josh Hader, one of the nastiest left-handed pitchers in all of baseball, one of the nastiest relievers in all of baseball. Sam's been in big leagues for 3 weeks, takes a fastball up and away from him and hammers it the other direction for a game-tying home run with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. I sent out a tweet. I said the Rockies basically just ruined the end of the Brewers season just because they could.
It's so good. My favorite part is that Drew, we have a Slack channel now that everyone's in, and Drew was like so hype about so many things that were happening in the series, and I was like, man, this is how I know like you're the right guy to cover baseball, because it's game 161. The Rockies have been out of it for months, and Drew's still like, look at this baseball game that's happening. It's incredible.
Slam Hilliard, baby.
Yeah, it was good times.
It was a very entertaining end to a really crappy season, and I appreciate that. Like you all know, because you've been there, like you appreciate them playing a little bit of inspired, even when it doesn't matter. If they'd have just come out and laid out clunkers, what was I going to write or have to talk about the last several days? They gave me plenty of fodder. So
real quick, what was their like if you find like a good clip of the end of the season, what was their record at the end of the season? Feels like they played good ball for like 20 games.
Oh yeah, I think they like finished 11-8 or something like that down the stretch. Yeah.
So now that the season is over, you've had a nap to
Right.
look back and reflect on. So what is your feeling on the season as a whole? Like what will you take from the season?
It was super crazy. There were a lot of really bad. I started in the middle of the year calling it the whack-a-mole season, and I think that's kind of what I'm sticking with. This was a year where a lot of things went wrong that were outside of their control. A lot of things went wrong that were inside of their control. But the biggest problem was that the timing of the things that went wrong screwed everything up. The fact that they had a ton of injuries right out of the gate, so they couldn't get off to a good start. And then they had a ton of injuries right at the end, so they could never recover from some of the other things that happened. People forget that this was a team that going into the month of July, where the trade deadline is, there was still a big question around all of baseball. Are they buyers, are they sellers? And then they just had the worst month in the history of their franchise. And I really do think it comes down to that July.
Oh yeah.
It really comes down to this 1 month. And while I totally understand the fans and the people in the media who want to go crazy and look at a team that almost finished in last place and say they got to make full-sale changes, they got to get rid of guys, they got to do crazy things because they can't just rely on the fact that they won 91 games in 2018 with mostly the same group and get back there. I do think there is a bit of an overreaction going on to what ostensibly comes out to a month and a half where everything that could go wrong, including, by the way, Nolan Arenado was terrible in the month of July. He was hurt a little bit, but those were the kinds of things. It was whenever one thing started to work out, the other thing fell off. And it was that way all season. They've got to make some very serious changes. Probably the most important offseason in the history of the franchise right now, so I don't want to undersell that. But they're not going to go crazy, and they shouldn't. There's a very, very good core here that needs to be built around, not torn apart and rebuilt.
How would you fix? What would you do?
I mean, I'd just start going after pitchers. And the
Do
hardest
pitchers
thing
wanna
is,
listen to that? Are they coming here? Like the good pitchers, do they care about your sales pitch?
no, not here. They don't. Sometimes you have to overpay, and that explains, by the way, some Wade Davis and Brian Shaw and Jake McGee contracts. You have to overpay to get guys in who've been good in other places. I think a better way to go is to, and we've seen them already start to do this with some of the players that people listening to this may have no idea who these names are, but Wes Parsons, Joe Harvey, Philip Deal, these are guys they brought in as minor leaguers.
Yeah, we know those guys.
Yeah. I know you. Of course, Eric.
Wes Harvey, he's the one with the quirky movies, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I love him.
They're sort of bringing in these dudes who are all still kind of in their mid-20s, who it hasn't worked out for them in other places, but they're maybe going to try to retool, but they don't cost anything, and they just have a lot of them. And we've talked before on this show about how volatile bullpens can be, and I really think that the thing you got to do is get 2 or 3 guys who you can feel like you can rely on and attack the rest of it with numbers. So I don't think it's about signing guys to the big contracts and getting in the big name and being like, we're going to pay that guy and he's going to come in and fix our bullpen. I think it's about going and finding some guys on the scrap heap and being really smart about it and expecting that some of the players you've had that have emerged this year are going to hold their own. But it really comes back to the starting pitching. How good your bullpen doesn't matter if your starters are as terrible as they were for much of the early part of the season.
I mean, it kind of matters. Right?
It does. You still need a closer, and that messed them up too. They won't be coming out like this is the thing that has already changed that people don't realize. Wade Davis isn't this team's closer anymore. That was a huge problem this year, but that's one that, at least in theory, already has a solution to it, and one that the numbers tell us we should all be very confident in with Scott Oberg. He's this team's closer now. So there are already some fundamental changes that have taken place kind of under the radar, but they need some other ones too. But I would attack it more with numbers than with, because they tried Brian Shaw's been the most reliable reliever in baseball for 6 years running. If we bring him in and he just does what he does, then that'd have been a great contract. But it didn't work. I don't know if you saw this. It did not work that way.
So, Drew, you were at Coors Field today for media availability. What were 2 things you took away? Just 2.
Wow. I don't want to start here, but I do have to start with the Nolan option thing because it was
AJ.
Oh, we're so ready to. It surprised me, I will admit it. And so what happened was Jeff Bridich was asked a question about whether or not the fact that Nolan Arenado can opt out after 2021 puts added pressure on him to compete so that he doesn't walk away. And first, I think he said all of the right things about, like, no, like, I should always be trying to build a winner, and no one player should kind of determine our direction. But then he didn't have to, just admitted that in their contract negotiations, he, Jeff Bridich, was the one who pushed for the inclusion of that option, and not Nolan Arenado.
Oh.
Well,
The plot thickens.
Wow.
So, a lot of people's first reaction to that was what we've just heard here. And I do think, if I can take one step back, because part of my issue with this is the framing of a conversation that's been going on for a while, which generally seems to suggest that if the Rockies don't play good, Nolan Arenado going to leave. We've been dealing with this narrative for a very long time. This is not new. This is just coming up again because they had a very bad season. And quite frankly, I think it is a fundamentally silly narrative for two reasons. One, I don't think that's how Nolan Arenado operates. I just don't. I don't think he thinks of it that way. He hates losing, and sometimes he expresses that, and it gets sort of twisted into stuff, but I just don't think he operates that way. And two, the Colorado Rockies are not a one-man baseball team. As great as that one man is, they've had teams. I watched them growing up as a kid with Larry Walker and Todd Helton, who had some of the best baseball players in the world, and lost 90 games.
yeah.
Position players in particular, the Colorado Rockies have never had a time in their history where they haven't had 2 or 3 great position players on their team. That's why they almost had 3 million people come out to the ballpark this year.
That's one reason.
It's with one of the reasons. But don't you come to see Nolan and Trevor play? Don't you come to sing tonight
Yeah.
to Charlie Blackmon and hope he hits one in the second deck?
But that narrative is more indicative of how deeply insecure we are as a fan base. Like, we just want to be loved.
Right.
We want it to be reciprocated. And Nolan's so good, and the Dodgers are so close, and he's from there, and there's all these reasons that we just feel less than. We can't get pitchers to pitch like they pitch in other places when they come here. And, it's like a deep-seated thing. Like, what do we do? Like, can the Rockies ever overcome? Can they ever overcome, Drew? Can this happen?
Yeah, it can, and it almost has a couple of times, and I think that the core they have now, what's funny to me is, as I look at the Colorado Rockies on paper right now, they're a better baseball team than they were when they started the season. People aren't thinking about that because of the way they played and because of all the guys who weren't on the field. We talked about the Ober Davis thing. There's a whole lot of little things like that. Ryan McMahon's a different ball player than he was. Garrett Hampson's a different ball player than he was. Sam Hilliard has emerged. Diaz and Estevez in the bullpen. There's been a lot of that that's going to be good for them moving forward. But the core is like how do you win championships in any sports? You got to have a couple of all-time greats, and the Rockies got some all-time greats. And they're not going to blink from that because they had a bad year. You build around people like Charlie Blackmon, Trevor Story, and Nolan Arenado because all of those guys are legitimately some of the best players in baseball, but you have to pitch. So to the end of the Jeff Bridich conversation, I think it is strange that he admitted it, and if it's true, I think it's strange that he went out of his way to advocate for it. But I also think people got to pump their brakes a bit and recognize that there is a plus side to not paying a 34-year-old $35 million. If he decides to leave, the Rockies will be able to figure out another way to get good position players. They've always done it. They'll be able to use that money in other places. And presumably, if he's leaving, they're in need of a rebuild at that time anyway, and that's what that's going to be used for. The Rockies have done the big guaranteed contracts to guys because we love them, and we never want to see Troy Tulowitzki go away, and we never want to see Carlos Gonzalez go away. And they signed pitchers to big contracts in the mid-2000s because Mike Hampton and Denny Nagel, they're the answers to all of these issues. It's never worked. So I get why people don't like to hear about the internal improvement, but 95, 2007, 2009, 2017, 2018, all of those years were about their own guys coming up through their systems and taking them on a run into the postseason. It's the only thing that's worked, and it's worked every time.
Well, speaking of a possible rebuild, let's transition
Oh, man.
on to the Broncos. 0-4. Breaking news yesterday. Bradley Chubb teared part of his ACL. Teared. Oh, okay.
Both.
Both. What is the environment like at Dove Valley, Ryan?
It's bad. It's very bad. This honestly is, in a weird way, it's not symbolic in a weird way, but it's almost like what they needed to just pass on the season, just figure it out and take this as a season for development. Take it to find out if Drew Lock is the guy. Take it to experiment with things with Vic Fangio. Like I know Harrison would love this to see if he was here, but like put him in the frickin' box.
Oh.
What's the worst thing that can happen? You lose and you go to 0-5. Like your winning percentage cannot get worse from where it is now, no matter what you do or try. So for me, this whole season now is about development in every aspect. See if you could develop Malik Reed into a player. He already, has his first sack. He's tied with Bradley Chubb in sacks this season. See if, you have some guys in.
Technically true.
See if you have, a young guy on the offensive line that can come in for Ron Leary because you know that you can't count on him. So maybe you try out an Austin Schlottman in that area. There's so many things now that I just feel like now that you can punt on this season, and you're probably going to punt a lot of times during this season, you can at least be at peace with the fact that this isn't going anywhere. One team in history, has made the playoffs after starting 0-4. You're not going to do that. So the biggest thing is Drew Lock, and unfortunately we are counting down the days, and it's going to be a few weeks, but we're calling this Locktober because he
so
can
you
practice
see him
this
coming
fall.
How
back in
dare
October?
you? First of all.
Hey, there's no Rocktober, so at least we can have Locktober.
You know what? You're right.
And the sad thing about Locktober is Drew can't even play in October. He can just practice.
So when do you think he'll be back? Can you give an estimate? Week what?
Well, yeah, week 9 is the first week that he can play.
Lockvenber.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to workshop that one.
That's right.
But we've done Locksgiving.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we've already done all of them.
Into December, of course.
What about like November?
Yes.
I think mine's the best. I don't really.
So here's what I would like to see happen is Drew Lock starts in week 9. Week 10 is their bye week. And a lot of people would say, oh, well, just start Flacco week 9, let Drew take the reins in the bye week, and then roll him out there in week 10. For me, I think that's a terrible idea. Play him in week 9, and then you have a whole week to evaluate, hey, here's where you went wrong, here's where you need to improve, and kind of soak it in. And then you get a full evaluation of this kid. That's the only way this season can be not a failure, is if you get a full evaluation of Drew Lock. And you know what? No matter what the evaluation is, it's a good thing for you. If the evaluation is Drew Lock's the guy, and he starts putting up 30 points in games and making awesome throws and gives this fan base something to be excited about, cool. You're rolling in the future. You're probably still going to have a top 10 pick, if not a top 5 pick, and you can use that to build around Drew Lock. If you find out that Drew Lock isn't the guy, that's good in its own way too, because he's not the guy, and now you probably have a top 3 pick, and you can use it on a quarterback.
What about Drew Vember?
He's still thinking about it.
It's better. It's better than November Drew.
Well, I don't know about that.
AJ, we talked about this a little bit
We
yesterday.
can call it No Joe November.
No Joe Vember.
When news broke about Bradley Chubb, what do you think of the Broncos right now?
Oh, no.
I don't.
Oh, no.
You don't?
Throw him that alley-oop like that?
We haven't heard much of him. We were
No.
talking about it yesterday, so I wanna hear what
I
you have
mean,
to say.
a lot of what I would have had to say, I think RK pretty much covered. If you're going to be a bottom 5 team, you have a quarterback that you think could be your QB of the future. You use the second half of the season to evaluate him and see what you have. If you have a player, then you probably are still going to have a top 7 pick, in which, depending on how the quarterback market shakes out and what it looks like in this year's draft class, if you end up with one of those high picks, you might be in the catbird seat to trade down and pick up more picks and to build more for the future because teams are going to be looking for that quarterback, and you won't be in that market anymore. If you're on the opposite side of that, then you're talking about trying to get involved in Tua and Justin Herbert and whatever quarterback comes out of nowhere, because it happens every year.
Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, right. I know.
It's happening.
Don't.
It's happening live.
Don't give me this Jalen Hurts stuff, man.
Hey, if you're gonna spread it out, go for it.
Well, so Ryan, like, what is your sense? Do you think that Drew Lock can be the guy?
Yes, 100%. I really liked what I saw from Drew Lock at the Senior Bowl. He's not going to be he's not just going to walk in week 9 and be a finished product.
Yeah.
But he has the qualities that this team, not just the Broncos at the quarterback position, this team has been missing for years now. And it's a fire, it's a leadership, it's a swagger.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things, go down the list. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler,
Fire.
Case Keenum, Joe Flacco. Not one of these.
Cutler.
Well, yeah, right. But I'm
Going
just
way
talking
back.
in these last years. None of these guys have fire. None. And this team has not had fire as a result. And to me, one of the biggest problems right now, and one of the biggest reasons that they're 0-4, is that they're all nonchalant. It's Joe Flacco's nonchalant. Vic Fangio's nonchalant. Even Von Miller, in his own cool way, is nonchalant. There's no one out there that they're empowering, at least. Philip Lindsay, Dalton Risner, they have a couple of these guys, but they haven't empowered those guys. There's no one that is just bringing that juice to this team. And that's my favorite thing about Drew Lock, is he has that in spades. He's a competitor. He's a trash talker. He just has an aura about him that makes guys want to get behind him. As a player, he's got a great arm. He can move around a little bit. He certainly has to work on getting his feet in the right place before he throws, and not just counting on his arm 100% of the time. But can he be the guy? 100%. Will he be the guy? That's what we have to find out this year.
One positive about Drew Lock. You just went through a list of quarterbacks, a sad list. A funner list would be Gardner Minshew, Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield. I'm forgetting some. But what do all those guys have in common? Mason Rudolph.
Mustaches.
With Drew Lock is that we saw them from the sideline with our own eyes at the Senior Bowl, and Drew Lock looked as good, if not better, than all those guys.
He most certainly looked better than Daniel Jones. We
by a
hammered,
mile.
we
Yes.
hammered that in. He definitely looked better than Minshew, even though Minshew was one of the guys that we kind of liked out there.
Minshew was consistent.
The only one that he honestly didn't look better than, just off the top of my head, is Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh Allen, I have
probably
to
more high-end flashes, but wasn't as consistent.
I have to
as
put them next to each other since
Yeah.
we didn't see them next to each other on the field.
But so Ryan, so if Drew Lock is indeed the guy, and we have an answer at quarterback, and we have a high pick, where do you attack first, trying to fix? Is it linebacker?
Left tackle.
Yeah.
You said it out. Yeah, it's left tackle.
Well, it's a good tackle
You
class.
got your guy. You have your guy back there. Protect him. I mean, look at what's happening with the Browns right now. Now they are going to figure it out because they have so much talent. But you saw those first couple games where they looked terrible. It's because they put their guy back there and they brought in all these receivers and did all this stuff, and they had no one to protect him. And you have this guy running around. So while Bowles now 2 straight weeks without a sack or a holding. Or actually, he gave a sack the week before. 2 straight weeks without a penalty.
He gave up
1
some
straight week
baby
without
steps.
a sack. He's trending in the right direction, it looks like, finally, in these last couple games, unless he truly, just locks it down towards the end of this season, you're going to have to probably replace that position.
I think what makes the Lock evaluation so difficult is that he probably isn't going to come in and light it up. You're going to have to find the positives. You're going to have to find the reasons to believe. And you're going to have to take that leap of faith based on what you see, because I think it is going to be a really mixed bag. When it inevitably happens this year, you're going to have to try and figure out, you're going to parse the mistakes, right? And try and find, okay, what's repeatable, what's an avenue for success for him, and what does it look like when he's all grown up, a fully formed prospect into this is his final form as a player in the NFL. And I think that's where it's really going to come down to. That's going to be the biggest test of this front office and of this coaching staff's evaluation skills. and their belief in their ability to develop, which is what they've really, really struggled with in the last few years, because they are not going. He's probably not going to make it easy on them. He's not. I mean, if he comes in and they start putting up 30 points and he's going 250 plus every week and he's got 65% accuracy and he's got a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, then you're like, okay, well, that's our guy, and you're done. It's easy. But if he goes in there, and he's, he has 9 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, and he's got a 57% accuracy, that's, and you're trying to figure that out. Okay, is this good or is this bad? And you're in a top 3 draft pick spot. I think that's really going to be the true test of everybody involved in this process is what's the best route? Because you're swimming through very, very muddied waters at that point, and you're playing with fire, kind of like Cleveland did, where they traded out of multiple opportunities to draft quarterbacks high, and they built around it. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but that might be kind of what you look to as your inspiration to say, maybe this isn't us. Maybe we move down.
Do we factor in that they're not that good? The Browns still.
I mean,
they're going to end up winning that division. Probably.
Well, and you're still building.
Yeah.
And you have your QB of the future,
right.
And that's the point, is that they
Sure.
got that guy, and it took them a couple of tries at it because they weren't comfortable with the Carson Wentz. They weren't comfortable getting involved in some of the sweepstakes that their draft pick put them in. So they moved back and they kept building around, and I think that's where. That might be what Denver has to look at if Drew Lock, if they do want to stick with it and they do want to take that leap of faith, and if they don't, and then they kind of look at Arizona last year where they say, hey, we took Josh Rosen 10th, but we really think this is going to be our guy and Kyler, and it sucks. The value of it is going to be bad and the optics of it are bad, but if we get this position right, there's no position more important in all of sports to a team's success. There's just not. And to be honest with you, there isn't one that comes even particularly close.
Goalie.
It's not even goalies are too volatile these days. 20 years ago, 100%, you needed Patrick Waugh, you needed Martin Brodeur, and Dominic Hasek. You don't need that anymore. Jordan Binnington just came out of nowhere and won a Stanley Cup he was 4th on the St. Louis depth chart going into last season.
Gardner Minshew just came out of absolutely nowhere.
Right, but that's
ruined my Sunday.
And he ruined your Sunday. How many Sundays is that guy going to ruin in his career? And maybe it's a lot. Maybe it's a lot. Maybe it's not very many. And this is just one of those things where we look back on Tim Tebow and we're like, well, that was a lot of fun. Maybe Minshew Mania has the same feel to it. We don't know that. But with the Lock conundrum that they're facing, it's not gonna. If he makes it easy for him, great. But I don't think any of us believe that that's going to happen. He's too flawed of a guy at this point. He's too raw.
It's going to come down to their eyes. You're not just going to be able to look down on a spreadsheet and say he's the guy. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes started 1 game before he became a starter. It was against the Denver Broncos. Do you know how many touchdowns he threw? 0. But you saw it.
How many games did he win?
1.
Yeah.
But you saw it. You saw with your eyes, okay, those are what we need to see from a quarterback in the future. Drew, it would be unlikely for it to just be beautiful across, like you said.
Yeah.
But you should be able to trust your eyes. And even the people sitting at this table should be able to trust their eyes and say, yeah, that guy's got it.
Yeah.
How many of his high school teammates went to his birthday party, though? That's
Probably all of them. He's that kind of guy.
He seems fun.
All right, well, we are going to talk about the Avs and the Nuggets in our next segment. But before that, we've got to talk about Total Bev's incredible 30% off deal that they're giving specifically to the DNVR family. 30% off your purchase of $25 or more using the promo code DNVR2019 online or on their Total Beverage app. They've got everything you're looking for, including CBD products, and if you get overwhelmed with the hundreds of options they have, don't worry, their incredible staff members will help you find exactly what you want. Don't forget to use the promo code DNVR2019 for that 30% off. All right, let's talk about the Avs.
Okay.
Yay!
Go Avs.
They
Go.
have their home opener on Thursday. And Mikko Rantanen is back in the building, practicing with the Avs. Big Moose. AJ, how excited are you for the start of the season?
How excited am I to watch a Stanley Cup run?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Pretty excited. I'm getting pretty amped up for it. You know, the beginning of their season is going to be a little weird because they play 2 games in 3 days and then they take 4 days off where I have to just try and find something to do. And then it's, you know, it's time. Then it's go time for them. And this is the most intense preseason in camp that I think I've covered. They are as deep and as skilled and as fast and as motivated as they've ever been. This is my 5th year covering them, and none of the past teams even come close to what this group is at all the positions. Goaltender is still a prove-it position, but it's a prove-it position every single day, so that's not saying much. But the rest of this team, they finalized their roster in halfway through that first segment, which is why people were texting me and being like, "Oh, I just watched you send that tweet," because they finalized their roster. Connor Timmins did make it.
Yeah.
And
We had an interview with him on live and on the DNVR Avalanche podcast.
Friend of the program.
yeah.
Friend of the pod.
He did make it. I fully expect he'll be in the lineup on opening night, probably next to Ryan Graves as that third pairing. This is the most talented Avs forward core, D core that they have had. Their defensive group right now, outside of the 2001 Cup run when they had 2 Hall of Famers and Adam Foote, this is probably the most talented Avs defense that they've ever had. Just top to bottom, and in terms of like even their replacement level players are above that level. I'm excited. The top line is elite. Their second line with Kadri looks really, really, really good. Tyson Jost looks like he's primed for a breakout. Burakovsky could be a 20-goal guy for them. Their bottom 6 is going to be among the best in the NHL. They're going to be absolutely obnoxious to play against. They have so much speed up and down their lineup. Every line has legitimately one guy that can absolutely fly. Minimum one guy. Some of them have 2. And the defense is... It's so skilled that, and it's not like the big lumbering shot blocking defense of 15 years ago where, you know, you wanted the big guys to be physical. All of them can skate. All of them have some level of puck moving ability. There's offensive upside in all of them to some level. The intelligence, the experience, it's the high end ability. It's extremely hard for me to stay measured when I watch this team every day because it's by far the most talented all-around team that they've had in a very, very long time.
Well, that's so exciting. Yeah.
I mean,
Incredible.
I can't wait to get in Pepsi Center on Thursday. That crowd is going to be buzzing. Calgary is going to come in thinking it wants a little bit of revenge, and it's going to be adorable.
Love it.
They you know, like you pinch the little cheekies like the grandma, like, oh, that's so cute. Look at you getting uppity. and like you know, win or lose, I'm not worried about Calgary. The Avs last year showed what they could do to those guys, and they only got a lot better. The Central is the only reason that I've kind of tempered some of my expectations and such, is because the Central Division, it's so deep and it's so talented. But Colorado's can hang with any of them, honestly, and night in and night out. I think Nathan McKinnon is going to push for the Hart this year. That dude is on a totally different level right now mentally. You know, I talked to him the other day, and he basically said, the next 7 years of my life are the best I'll ever be at this game, and I have to make that count. If we don't win something meaningful, then it was all for nothing. And that's, you've gotta have...
It's a little existential.
Like, and I think that's what the Broncos are missing. They're missing that soul. And, you know, that fire, that absolute, like, I have to do this. Like, I absolutely have to do this. I have been given these gifts. I have worked my ass off to make this, to maximize every inch of my ability. If we do not win anything, then it was meaningless. All I did was make money. And that's the attitude that he's coming in with. And when your best player, who is a top 3 player in the NHL, has that attitude and works the way that he does every single day in practice, there's no excuse for anybody on that roster to come in and loaf around and to not take it seriously and to mail in any kind of effort on any given day, because the top of that roster damn sure isn't doing it. And if they don't make any kind of a serious run this year, I'll be really, really surprised.
All this sounds amazing. Here's my one question.
Can they stop pucks?
No. That is a good question.
Yeah, that's my concern.
The Rockies have me freaked out. Because
I did the same thing as he was running down, and when he said this is the most talented team I've ever covered, I thought, oh man, I said
No deja vu.
I said that
please.
coming into the year, but yeah.
And here's what I know. Baseball is very unpredictable.
Right.
Pitchers have Kyle Freeland seasons where it was there and now it's gone,
Yeah.
and now you got to go find it. With the Nuggets, I just know Jokic is still a top 5 player. He doesn't
Right.
just all of a sudden stop being amazing.
Right.
Where does hockey fall on this scale in terms of, can it go away a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, you can get complacent. It's
Really
an,
hoping he was going to say no.
No, I mean,
But I mean, like,
it's
in
an
terms of like
everyday.
from a player to player basis.
Yeah, it's an everyday grind, man, and you've got to be committed to it. Every single day, you have to be committed to being the absolute best version of yourself. The league is too good. It's too skilled. The coaches are too smart. They know how to stop you, and that's why the Avs went out and they got deeper. They didn't necessarily say, hey, we need to improve all of our top-end guys here. It's that they went out and they said, all right, well, our second line last year was a problem. We got to we're running down our lineup and we're saying, all right, what are we comfortable with? Oh, we love our first line. Our second line, yeesh. And then you keep going down that list and you get to a black hole of a fourth line that gave you nothing last season. And this year, they're going to have one of the top fourth lines in the NHL. I've said it all summer.
Huge.
I firmly believe that the depth that they added means that they will have a fourth line that at times will probably get overplayed to people's annoyance, but will be super reliable and really good two-way. And they're going to be able to chip in offensively and do some work. And what's the variance on that? If McKinnon drives the bus the way that I think he's going to this year and put up 110-ish points, I don't know that it's going to matter a whole lot, man. Like, they have to, as long as Mikko and Mac are who they are, they'll be fine. Even if Landy regresses a little.
There's something that those two sports that you mentioned are the physics of those sports are different from basketball, certainly, where the shape of the puck is so strange. Like
Right.
you never possess the puck; you're only ever pushing it forward. Like baseball, there's just so many weird physical things that happen, like bad bounces. In basketball, the best team always wins a series.
Yeah.
Like, they always win a series because they are holding the ball, they are dictating what happens, where it goes. In hockey, it's like bad bounces happen. Like
Yeah.
there's no bad bounce where like it
Yeah.
goes into your basket, the other team's basket. Or something.
Random variance is obviously a huge part of, and it's one reason why the Stanley Cup is probably the hardest trophy to win.
For sure.
Because you have to find your way through 4 of those things.
Absolutely.
4 best of 7 in which you are subjected to random variance and the highest talent level possible in the world.
Yeah.
And then the difference in the postseason where you can hone in on a team's weakness and you can just, like
Sure.
a bird against a window, you can just keep tapping on it until the other team can't take it anymore.
Right.
And eventually that glass breaks and it's over. And that it's just totally, and it's kind of like the NBA in that way, where the best teams, they can figure out ways to take away certain aspects of games in the postseason.
Right.
In the NHL, and it's a brutal grind. They call it the second season for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a 3-month grind every single day.
I remember.
I literally felt it.
Yeah,
in my own
Yeah.
body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Well,
pay
we
my
were doing
taxes.
last year was wild because we were It was, and the Nuggets and Avs alternating days. And
It
then there was
incredible, but also took years off my life.
well, and then there was the one, we're in at a watch party for Game 2, and the Nuggets series
my
had just
God.
started, and we're watching both at the same time,
yeah.
and
They both went down to the wire.
Right, and it
Everyone
was
so
OT.
stressed.
and it was just right, and Murray misses that elbow jumper, and you're
Yeah.
just oh my God.
And then I call, of course, that McKinnon's going top shelf for the winner, and then he does.
Oh, gotta throw that one in
And
there.
it was just a different, that I think their success, getting back just to the Avs though, I think their success only drives them, because they saw last year, we won a series, we got to Game 7 against San Jose, who everybody loved, and then San Jose lost a whole lot over the summer, including Donskoy to Colorado. And now Colorado's feeling themselves a little bit, they're, and not in a way where they're oh, we're super good.
Hockey,
Everybody's gonna lose to us. They're we got this. They're gonna walk into every single game knowing there's no talent disparity anymore. Every level of that team can match up with the opposing team every single night. And not only that, but so many young guys, they're gonna get better as the year goes on. Cale Makar, Game 1 is not gonna be Cale Makar come playoff time again. He's going to be, the Super Saiyan version of Cale Makar. It's going to be next level.
Although Cale Makar scored a goal in Game 1 of his NHL career. So.
Right. But that's,
Oh, God, I'll never forget just the buzz in
No,
that stadium every time the puck was on his stick.
that
was
building
so awesome.
will never be recreated. That feeling.
That was incredible.
It was a unique experience because of all the factors, right?
Yeah.
And I think Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon are going to bring a nerfed version of that every night this year.
Well, they've also been here already. 2 years ago, they
So.
made it to the first round. Then they felt it. They felt that loss. Now, last year,
Right.
they made it to the second round.
And they were just happy
felt
to be
that
there.
loss.
Year 1, let me
Yeah.
tell you, those dudes were what happens, happens. They were very content to have just made it.
And then
Their
Forsberg
playoffs was
ate
Game
their lunch.
82.
Yep.
And then when they dug into that series and they were 2-2, and they were 3-2 coming back home.
Right.
They were just spent. They
Yeah.
had just, between Game 82 and between all of that, they had run out of that emotional energy, and all of that built towards their success last year, where they understood, okay, make the small plays, do the little things here and there, blow out the Flames because they're not actually that good, shut down Johnny Gaudreau because he's shook, and all of that built towards, we can take on San Jose.
Yeah.
And they came that close.
They did. And I feel like that just adds to this year. They tasted it. Now it's let's go get it.
Now they're really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
They're really, really mad. And they also believe in themselves in a way that they just haven't in the past.
And it fits perfectly with Malone yesterday saying he's telling the team, this is not an 82-game season. This is a 110-game season. You can't say that when you haven't been deep.
Yeah.
Because those guys probably felt how their bodies felt at the end of that thing. And that's a totally different thing. So Bednar should be saying the same thing. You guys should be praying for 110 hockey games this season. And when they made the playoffs that first time, that's why they were spent, because they had never been there. They didn't know what it's like. Now they've not only been there twice in a row, they've been deeper. They realize, okay, this is a totally different ball game. And like you said, the second season.
Yeah, and if they leave it to the last week of the season to clinch a playoff spot, they're going to be really disappointed in themselves, because their goal, they're not messing around, man. They want home ice. They want Game 1 of their first round playoff series to be in Pepsi Center.
I'm
And
getting
they
goosebumps
want
thinking
to
of the
whenever
future.
whatever poor opponent gets matched up against them, whatever 8th seed rolls into Denver that night, after they've won the Central, that poor team is going to get waffle stomped. Because this is a team that's not messing around. I can't emphasize that enough. I've been cool about this all preseason and been well, there's lots of things that can go wrong because that's my job. But just from my personal opinion here, they're not kidding. And they're putting it together where they're going to put, I think Colorado and Nashville are going to have a really, really, really fun race for the Central Division. And Nashville better enjoy raising that banner because it may be a while before they do it again.
Ooh.
I love this. I love everything you're saying so much. And I love that it's on this podcast because there are a lot of people out there who are DNVR subscribers because of Drew and I, and they're just searching for something right now. And I think the Avs
For real.
and Nuggets
Those poor souls.
That's it.
have a massive,
Right.
massive, massive opportunity in front of them to take the city and say, hey, we know, those guys are great. The Broncos, you love them, and the Rockies too. Come over here. Come have a hug. We'll bring you in, and let's go have a really, really fun sports season together. And I truly believe that this is like a quintessential moment in both of those franchises to capture Denver and run with it.
Absolutely.
This is where, honestly, this is where that they prove that there's an off season.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have to mean waning support for the Broncos. It's not as if there's only so
Right.
much support
It's
the
not,
city
it's not
has to
even,
give.
It doesn't have to be either or. They play Sundays.
Right. So
There's a whole lot of other games. The Avs don't even play a Sunday game until like March.
like I don't have kids, but people always say when you have another kid, you don't love them any less. Like you
Right,
just
exactly.
find more love. Denver has more love to give, and the Avs and Nuggets can totally take that and run with it this season.
Well, with that, the Nuggets had media day yesterday. They are around 25 days until the regular season starts for them. Our Nuggets representative today is Eric.
Not expert. Representative.
Representative.
Yes.
Because our
Correspondent.
DNVR Nuggets guys are in Colorado Springs at training camp at the moment.
How
Yesterday,
dare they?
I know.
how dare they do their job?
Terrible.
Yesterday, from everything we heard from Media Day, it seems like the Nuggets have that same type of mentality you were talking about, AJ, with the Avs. I mean, there's this relaxed confidence, quiet confidence.
Quiet
it's
confidence,
not
yeah.
it's not cockiness, but they know who they are and they know what they're capable of, and they're not letting it slip away from them this year. At least that's what was portrayed by a lot of media members yesterday at Media Day.
Yeah, across the board. I mean, I was following closely as a correspondent. You know, my place on this board, I am the everyman
Yes.
here. So I have the uninformed everyman's view of the Nuggets, who I love, and I am a season ticket holder, and I go all the time. I watch all the games. I've gotten really engrossed in the culture, but I don't, I watch it as a fan, like a pure fan. And so, watching yesterday all of the things that were coming out of Media Day, I mean, everybody sort of said that it was kind of it was low key, and like you said, there was a real quiet confidence, which is just not a phrase that you hear bandied about when you're talking about the Nuggets. It's sort of like, did we finally figure it out? Like, who are these guys? Is the core real? Are they legit? Like, are they actually going to come into their own? Is it going to be just another, carrot dangled in front of us where we start to see promise and then Nug Life strikes and some like terrible thing happens, like we can't watch them on TV or something.
Oh,
and
for both teams.
right,
I wasn't going to bring any of that up.
Yeah.
right, but so the Nuggets are going into this year where there's actual hope and there's actual real expectation for performance, because what we saw last year, it was not a fluke. I mean, it was, ever since the Malone era began, we've been on this path, and it sort of represents like what you want to be actually true when you're talking about building a team, where you bring in a rebuild, and then every year you improve and you get better and you get better and you get better. And now we're to the point where we can start to have real expectations of this team. Not only that, obviously the NBA was insane this offseason with
Yeah.
the shakeups. Like I literally I have no idea who plays for who anymore.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to get like a primer.
I know, like I see photos coming out from other teams' media days, and I'm like, oh right, what? Like, is this like an all-star? Oh no, they're on the same team now. So we have no idea what the chemistry is going to look like. I mean, every team looks scary in that they have like two dominant players put together. There's Kawhi and Paul George in in Clipperland, and then Anthony Davis
Yeah.
and LeBron James. I mean, it's
Harden and Westbrook.
Harden.
Yeah.
I mean, we're truly in
gonna
the
be so
NBA
fun to
Jam
watch.
era of the NBA, where you just have two dominant guys, and so you got to think that at this
It's like
point,
NBA Jam. Remember
Yeah.
that in the 90s? You could-
Literally what he just said.
But they got to bring back the goggles, man.
I'll bring it back,
I'm like, they got to
absolutely.
bring back all
I'm
of
saying,
this.
the Horace Grant
This is
goggles.
going to make it work.
The greatest accessory in sports history.
Yeah.
it's so true.
Can you imagine Jokic in a pair of those?
Oh
Yes.
my God,
Yeah.
no.
We've got to do
I have
this.
several times.
Let's do this.
Eric, we're gonna need your photoshopping skills after the podcast.
I'm happy to donate them. This is something I feel good about, is Jokic and glasses. But
They're goggles.
so, whatever.
He could
who's
go
photoshopping
scuba
here?
diving in those things.
But it's amazing because the Nuggets have like true continuity in a way that other teams don't have, and so it's been talked about. And I'm a believer in the fact that a lot of these teams are going to be trying to figure out what their identity is with all of these new alpha dogs sort of vying for that spot, and it's going to take time. And the Nuggets don't really have that. They added Jeremy Grant in the offseason, who looks to come off the bench. The only real question is at the 3. We don't really know who's going to be starting there. It sounds like probably Will Barton. Which,
Interesting quotes about that yesterday.
Yeah,
It
open
sounds like an
competition.
open competition. Yeah,
absolutely,
Love
but
Which
that.
means Michael Porter Jr. isn't out of the question.
he's one of the 4 in the mix
Yeah.
with world champion Juancho Hernan Gomez and Torrey Craig, right?
yeah, absolutely. But
Oh,
And Barton, who you mentioned
I
already.
tell you, if Torrey Craig has a significant role again,
he's
like
Remember the
He's a
game that he
3D.
saved them though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
the game.
Craig goes to the
Yes,
kind of
Torrey
guy
Craig
who,
did.
against a team like the Clips, you kind of need a guy like
Yeah,
Craig.
you need a
And
lockdown
you need
guy.
a guy like Grant.
Right.
You know, like
You need a lockdown guy that can make sure that C.J. McCollum doesn't go off in Game 7 and break your hearts and your dreams. But
Dude, too soon.
well, listen, you have no idea. I mean, that's the funny thing is like I'm so deeply Nuggets focused, and I like haven't quite turned the page because it was so intense at the end of last season. Like I was emotionally destroyed. Like I didn't really know who I was. I was looking deep in the mirror, and like I'm not really ready to return to that. But at the same point in time, like I'm just so excited to see what Michael Porter Jr. is. He's just this like phantom, like this promise of like what could be this otherworldly talent that we got so late in the draft and we're gifted. I don't know. I mean, it's just like if you are into the Nuggets, it's a very exciting time. And like Ryan mentioned, if you're new to the city and you don't have like all of these old hang-ups with the idea of the Nuggets have a major opportunity to seize a huge fan base. And all of these people that are coming to Denver, it all ties in with the rebrand. The uniforms look cool. You want to rock them. They have a uniform that says Mile High City, which they never had before, which was insane that they didn't have that before. There's just something about like owning the idea of Denver and emblazoning it on your chest, and like people wanting to stan you and you know like come to these games. It's just like right there for them, and they just need to seize it.
I love hockey and I love the Avs and I'm huge into it, but it has kind of an exclusive fan base. Is that how you would call it? Yeah. The Nuggets, I feel like, can be the perfect team for like the new Denver.
Absolutely.
You know, because Denver,
Yeah,
whether people
100%
like it or
agree
not,
with
is really, really changing.
It is.
And there's a ton of new people. And the NBA, at the exact same time, is totally capturing young people. And there's
Yes.
so many young people around the city right now. I truly think that the Nuggets, while the Broncos will always be Denver's team, the Nuggets can be the team of new Denver, and kind of, you know, and really grow with the city at the same time. And the Avs are always going to pick off people as they go.
Yeah.
But it's the mix of the NBA, which is totally blowing up in younger demographics, and all these young people coming to Denver at the same time.
But I think Jokic is the perfect superstar for Denver. like
Without
it's
question.
kind of like this like goofy
Weirdo.
like where did you come from, like you know, because Denver's kind of out here in the Rocky Mountain region on its own.
I
Like
completely-
as kind of, and I'm sorry SLC people who may listen to this
I'm not
and
sorry.
get upset about this, but
retract that apology.
like Yeah, I'm really not that sorry, I guess. But like, they are, Denver's kind of like the unofficial capital of this whole region.
Definitely.
And it's kind of a weird, group of a lot of different people. And Jokic is kind of like a goofy face of a franchise in the NBA, where you have like some of these guys are
dudes.
Right, like these dudes are
The swagger is
right,
so important.
and like this dude's like riding horses, and like he's got
Dancing
like
with his shirt off, hanging from a tree.
Right.
Which he
like-
said was his mic drop moment.
like we're joking about this dude wearing goggles because it's like
Hey, we could see
he's
that.
weird enough it could happen,
And that's,
like,
that's the genius of the way that this team has been constructed, in that Tim Conley, and it's been stated as such, like he recognizes that there are certain personality types that don't want to play in Denver. They just don't want, they want that spotlight.
Right.
They
want that star feel.
Yeah, and you have all of these Euros that, like, you look at Denver and it's like not that dissimilar from where they're from.
Right, this
So,
dude
like,
comes over from Serbia and he's like, "What's the problem?"
Yeah. Like,
You know,
this is
just
awesome.
Jamal Murray's from Kitchener and he's
Right.
like, "Oh, this kind of reminds me of home a
Yeah,
little
like,
bit."
and they see what we
Okay.
see in
It's true,
Denver.
it's true.
They don't just see it as, like a place to build their.
Where there aren't like dope clubs with
Yeah.
like
Right.
valet parking.
Right. Yeah. So
We do have no clubs in Valley Park.
Really?
So people know.
There are some.
Really? I
Tell us
thought
more,
you
Gray.
were the dad now.
Yeah.
You know,
He
that
always
is
says
an
as the
option
kids
if you do
say
want
now.
I've yet to find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope
I
all
think
of
they
that
have
is
valet
true,
parking
by
and
the way.
shotguns.
Because I too am a long-suffering
Matty
Nuggets fan.
Peter.
Hey,
Yeah.
As a Colorado native who grew up here and has seen this movie play out a couple of times before, you talked about people from out of town who might be hung up on the Nuggets past. Well, I'm a little hung up on the Nuggets past here, buddy.
Well, I'm saying
when I
that-
was a kid, Nick Van Exel was their best player. You would come to
I have a Nick Van Exel jersey.
Yeah, you come to see the Nuggets based on who they were playing, not
Well, that's what I
But
mean.
then I dove in so hard in the Carmelo years, and I think that's why I'm hoping what you guys are saying here about Jokic is true, because Carmelo had the talent, and I honestly still believe that team could have and probably should have won a championship.
100%.
And I even think if he'd have stayed, they'd have won a championship. If you look at what they built around him, like just through the draft, like he never really had an earnest opportunity to play with Ty Lawson and Kenneth Faried, who were the exact kind of players that Carmelo Anthony always needed when he was here and
Guys
never
who
had.
don't want the ball.
Exactly. Guys who want to do all the little things and let that dude shoot. And as soon as Carmelo left, there was this whole, oh, they're a better team now because they play this team basketball. But there was also the obvious elephant in the room. Who wants to take the last shot?
There was no elephant on the court.
There wasn't that guy. So as much as some people were happy to see Carmelo go, and it crushed me, I'm not going to lie, it created a whole other problem that people wanted to look past, and they didn't get it solved until they got Jokic. And now I'm like, don't do this to me again, bro.
True.
Don't break my...
True.
Can I start going back to Pepsi Center
True.
this year? Because I haven't for a couple of
Look
years.
deep into my eyes right now.
It's about to get weird.
Drew,
yeah.
Eric?
do you want to go on vacation together? Oh, no. Do you can trust in Jokic. Jokic is the most skilled player I can remember watching. He possesses absolutely zero athletic ability. He's the least athletic player I've ever seen play in the NBA.
Oh.
And he dominates because he has something you can't take away, which is, I heard him interviewed and he said that wherever he wants the ball to go, it just goes. And so
He's a wizard.
he's a wizard, and
Is he
he's
Yoda?
and he's a genius.
Basketball.
Yoda.
He's
So,
a genius.
Yoda.
He is.
He is Yoda. He's much taller than Yoda.
Sure.
And Yoda, as we found out, very athletic. But
Episode 2 reference?
But the thing is that no, the Nuggets are for real, and it's like we were saying. There's not the variance in this sport that there is in others, where you're just hoping that things bounce your way. Like you just have guys that learn how to play together, and they're getting better and better. And I'm getting played off. He's a good player.
Is he Hagrid? Not athletic, wizard.
I need to see Hagrid with the high pick and roll.
All right.
There we go. All right, well, we obviously have huge smiles on our faces, and we're going to have that hopefully all throughout Avs and Nuggets season. And if you want to have a beautiful smile during that time, our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group are giving away a free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam. It's seriously the easiest way all you have to do is take care of your teeth. Check them out today online or call them at 303-988-0711 to schedule your appointment. Oh my God, I can't talk. Your appointment. And by the end of it, you can get a free Sonicare toothbrush. All right, so we've already gone pretty long, so we're just going to go right into who won the week. And for our live viewers, I'm going to play the jingle on my computer.
There you go.
And who did the least? Who was the dog? And who was the beast? Who's in the boat and who's up the creek? Let's see. Who won the week?
Well, last week, Mel Tucker, this man right here, Mel Tucker took the lead and he beat Juancho for winning a world championship for the second week in a row. Well, Miko won first last week, then Mel Tucker won. So Juancho has yet to win the week.
And Adam blamed it all on Harrison.
He did.
It's funny, Miko won again this week.
Listen.
Hold on.
All right.
God, $55 million. He good.
Okay, so, well, let me pull out my timer. I was going to say, so Mel Tucker won by 67% for leading the Buffs to a huge win, in all caps, in shorts.
Well, he didn't win by 67%. He got 67%.
Okay, he got 67%. The Broncos, because they found an offensive identity, got 6%. That didn't last for too long. And
They also did follow up that with a really solid offensive performance.
Yeah.
In fact, by yards per play, it was their best performance on offense since Peyton Manning left. So
Well.
Brandon might have been onto something.
Well, it turns out their identity is a losing team that plays pretty good.
Yeah, it was a whack-a-mole thing.
all right,
They whacked
and then,
one down and then they stopped stopping the run.
and then Juancho Hernan Gomez, because he is still a world championship champion, got 27%.
Come on.
So
He might be 1-0 in world championships,
Please.
but he is 0-2 in who won the week.
Also, I wonder if he was at the last World Championships, if that stat is even correct.
Ooh, true.
Yeah, he might be 1-1. So.
well, a lot of people wrote in a vote saying that DNVR won the week, which we appreciate you all for
Aw.
saying that. So
That's,
sweet.
by the way, that was my argument.
That was.
It didn't even make the
But
poll.
we've
Yeah, we
felt
didn't wanna, like,
weird
Yeah.
being like, hey guys, we won the week, vote for us. It felt a little weird.
I mean,
Plus,
in
like-
reality, we win every week, so.
I guess it's
Because
true.
we get to do this.
See, that
We
was
get to
much
work
worse.
with each other.
That's right.
Aw.
It's the friends we made along the way, right?
There we
Yeah,
go.
I
there
thought
you
it was
go.
because there's Colorado core in the office.
That could be too. Okay,
We're gonna see a lot of Drew around here, aren't we?
Coming in for those audio stories.
free beer. All right, we're gonna go with Drew. You get to start. Why did the Rockies win the week? Go.
They won the week because their season mercifully came to an end. It's over. They will not lose another baseball game for several months. And that's actually, it's a combination of things. They really did need this season to just come to an end, and that's legitimate. But also, as I was talking about earlier, the way their season ended, there were a handful of guys that could give them some hope moving into next season if they played well down the stretch. And every single one of them did. And they've got to feel good about the young players like Garrett Hampson, Sam Hilliard. I've named all the names before. But the Rockies won the week because they messed up the Brewers' day, like, fantastically and in hilarious fashion.
Yeah,
But
20
also
seconds.
because they finished their season out in as positive as a way as they possibly could, given everything that's happened this year.
All right, and you finished in 51 seconds. AJ,
Nice.
I love how crestfallen you are that you can't buzz people.
do you see? I have it pulled up
She's
on my
always-
computer. I've got the
Oh.
sound ready. AJ, why did the Avs win the week?
I mean, Rantanen signed. They're full health going into the regular season, in which I think this last segment showed I'm pretty excited about. They're gonna have one of the top 2 or 3 lines in the NHL, and Rantanen a 6-year deal that keeps him here until he's 28 years old. They'll probably, when he gets to 28, just copy and paste his current contract and do it again until he's in his 30s. I don't think he's going anywhere for a long time. I don't think any of these guys want to go anywhere, and I think that's a big culture change from where they were just a few years ago. Guys want to be here. Guys want to win cups here. Guys want to bring those glory days back to Denver, and Miko re-signing is it.
All right, time. You finished with 48 seconds. Eric, please let me hit the buzzer. Why did the Nuggets win the week?
All
Go.
right, well, I'm going to wait for 10 or so seconds to start that.
You should have seriously just waited. Just been
The
like,
Nuggets won the
You can
week
see the
because
timer.
the way that you're talking about the Avalanche is entirely applicable to the Nuggets as well. Like, we have officially entered into a championship window. We are about to see whether or not we got the greatest steal from a draft in a very long time. Somebody that was projected to potentially go number 1. We get at 14. He just has a redshirt season. And the reason that they win over the Avalanche is that their opening game is much further away, so there's much better chance you'll be able to actually watch it.
He went there.
Oh,
He went there.
yeah.
And
I
he
mean,
finished
that-
with 41 seconds.
I would say that part of it is true.
Yeah, that's why they won the week.
Well, and
You're facing peril. That has to count against your.
the Avs actually play games though, and not play media games. You know, we're really excited. You
This
know,
is
the
a show
Avs
for
are
the-
actually on the ice.
This is a show for the fans, AJ.
So
Okay. Well, Ryan, are you gonna do the Broncos or are you gonna no? Okay, well
Conscientious objector.
I won the week because my Mikko Rantanen jersey is good for 6 more years at least.
yeah.
you wanna give a serious one now? That was a funny one. Now let's go.
All right.
It affected your time. You're 13 seconds.
All right. Well, Mel Tucker won the week.
Oh God.
Because
He
there's
didn't-
this dope video that came out about him
Wow.
in which they went inside of his office and showed off his entire shoe collection. And he has an incredible shoe collection. And not only is it like the Jordans and the Nikes, but he's got like Prada shoes and like Tom Ford. And it was just the ultimate flex. And you just have to imagine that kids all over the country are watching this video that went semi-viral and saying, wow, I gotta go play for that guy. So if you can win a bye week, Mel Tucker did it.
God damn
Can I
it.
just
Finished with 52
say
seconds.
that I think it's so wrong that Drew's been forced all summer
No
to
one is
make
forcing
an argument
Drew.
for the Rockies
He
winning
could have
the
done
week.
the Grand
And
Junction.
3 weeks
What-
in,
Oh,
the Giants
I was
just
gonna say
punted on the
that name.
Broncos. It's so
Do you have a
terrible.
candidate?
Also,
So
Cortland
terrible.
Sutton? No
also,
offense?
there's no child on earth that's
Yeah.
looking at coach with Prada shoes and planning his future around that.
I mean, they probably like the
You
Jordans
should
a
have
little
stopped
bit
at the
better.
Jordan.
The Jordan is a little better.
But I don't know. By the way, no one is forcing Drew to pick anyone.
I
He
did
could have
think-
chosen the Nuggets or the Avs.
I could have gone with Garrett Hampson again just to do it.
I thought you should.
Yeah.
We could have used you on our side.
If I was gonna go Broncos, I probably would have gone with Cortland Sutton because he's slowly but surely stacking performances on top of each other, where it looks like, oh, okay, that guy can be a number 1 receiver, and for a team that is rebuilding, to know that you have that guy is huge.
Honestly, they kind of do win the week because this is a team that needs to rebuild, and in order to drill that home into their front office, they need to lose games, and they are this close to being 2-2 and thinking that they're super in it. And this might be the best thing for them in the long run, is that this sucks today, but they weren't going to make the playoffs anyway. So being 2-2 would have just driven them down a path where, you know, maybe the trade deadline rolls around and they're like, man, we're not going to do that because we're in it, because we won those 2 games in the first 4 weeks. You know, they lost those 2 games. Now they're 0-4. There's no illusions in that locker room now.
Okay, let's go back in the podcast, and I'll just say that.
Nah, man, Mel Tucker's got nice shoes. I don't know why we're talking about this.
I love you all Buffs fans,
I'm just
but
gonna
if
keep-
that wins over Miko, over the Nuggets,
I mean, it's Miko and just like the general
It's just
excitement
Miko.
around
Yeah.
the Avs, and like there hasn't been this kind of like, people were excited last year. Oh, they made the playoffs and Nathan McKinnon broke out and like he almost won the Hart and it's gonna be fun. This isn't like excitement. This is like, hey, we think you're gonna compete for a Stanley Cup.
yeah.
Not like, woo, let's go back to the playoffs and maybe something can happen and, you know, maybe you get a little frisky and you beat somebody. This is like, we're going to compete for a Stanley Cup. Like, this is like a championship thing. The same thing that's going on with the Nuggets, except that they're not playing real games yet.
Hopefully someone picked up on this, but I won last week with Mel Tucker fashion. And I'm just trying to go back to what works.
With that, Andre, do you have a Who Won the Week selection?
I think what AJ said is great
About the Broncos?
because best predictions were like 8-8, but now you can go all in. It's Draymond and DeMarcus up front. Justin Simmons is in the middle of a great season. Joseph Jones, I always confuse
Joe Jones.
Joe Jones. He's
Joe
gonna
Jones,
be
for
back.
sure.
I'm really high on Joe Jones.
name you
Offense
just
starting
found
to
out
look
to
good.
say, yeah.
Reisner might be one of the best guards in all of football
He's super legit.
already.
He's really, really good.
So quietly, the young core is blossoming.
Well,
They
and
should be
Sutton
500.
And
right?
Lindsey
Sutton.
and Freeman looks like a duo that you can build around for the next few years.
They need to
Yeah.
get Phil the ball more.
But
Okay,
but like
so-
like realistically, like there's a lot of talent there, and it just needs to do it. There we go.
It wasn't loud enough. I'm not gonna stop.
That's why Ali passed me the mic, was just to buzz me. Wow.
Okay.
She knows you're long-winded.
That's true.
With that, someone commented on the live and said, "Yo, Papa Dre, Italian stallion."
That was definitely
That was
Spencer
Dre.
Post.
That was Dre.
that was definitely Spencer.
Shout out to
Yes.
Spencer. What's up?
We will be doing these podcasts live most of the time, so be sure to leave us comments and we'll answer your questions. Shout out to Iceman also for leaving us nice comments always on the Denver Sports Podcast, just saying, nice to hear you guys all. So we appreciate you, Iceman. Do you have anything? You look like you have something to say.
Oh no.
Oh, okay.
I had something to say on the last topic, but you cut me off. I'm never
Well,
coming back.
We gotta wrap it up. As always, be sure to leave us ratings. We got a 1-star rating, guys.
How dare they?
How dare they? Only one. But so go
That was
leave
probably
us.
that guy who did not like my anti-Broncos take.
It's a possibility.
Look, there's 5 stars right here. All you
Right
have to
here.
do is just copy this.
and then you got out another one for
And I don't belong.
All right, well, go leave us a review, go leave us a rating, leave us your comments on the Denver Sports Podcast post, and go vote for Who Won the Week. It's going to be an interesting one because we had a lot of different discussions.
Mel.